up quick at about noon.
And welcome into the March 9th edition of the podcast with Damien Barling, presented by Vibe Health Bar, where you can get the protein-packed peanut butter dream with 23 grams of plant-based protein to fill your day, charge your muscles, and fire up your metabolism. Locations in the East Sacramento, Oak Park, and Folsom. Vibe Health Bar is where busy people like you go to achieve vibrant health. Thank you so much for downloading, streaming. Thank you so much for listening. And now, for the first time, thank you so much for watching here as we're doing the podcast live over there on YouTube. We appreciate everybody who is checking us out on our new platform here. Of course, the podcast available, as it always is, on iTunes, Google Play, SpotifyRadio.com, wherever you get your podcasts from. The podcast will still be available. We're just now available in video format over there on YouTube. So if you're not a subscriber yet on YouTube, please become one. Just hit the subscribe button, search Damien Barling. There's a little bell next to the subscribe button. You can be alerted every time we go live, every time I post a video. You'll be alerted and you can check us out. You can join us. You can be a part of the chat room, be a part of the show. And as you know, as always, greatly appreciate it. Greatly appreciate you joining us here. As always, we will start with the Sacramento Kings. Interesting weekend for the Kings. We see Richaun Holmes return on Saturday night. We see them absolutely light things up against the Portland Trail Blazers. Come home. Kind of an up and down effort against the Toronto Raptors, and really no shame in that when you consider the fact that the Raptors are the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference right now. The Raptors are kind of in the position that they are. They're trying to battle it out with the Boston Celtics for home court advantage. You know, they're separated quite a bit from the Milwaukee Bucks. It's a two-man race for that number 2 spot, and they just stuck with their game plan. They look like the Toronto Raptors look like a tired basketball team yesterday, and they came in the game. They were 1 of 11 from 3 to start the game. They were 1 of 11 for 3 in the first quarter, and they did not deviate from their plan to get up 3-point shots. They didn't deviate it from it at all, and it wound up paying off for them because all of the threes that were falling for the Sacramento Kings the night before in Portland, they were not falling last night at the Golden One Center as the Kings lose 118 to 113, sending their record right now to 28-36 as they continue to battle it out for the 8th spot in the Western Conference playoff picture. They are 4 games behind the Memphis Grizzlies, and when you really look at the season in its totality, or when you look at the remainder of the season in its totality, it's a difficult road for pretty much everybody. Like, we try to look at schedules and we try to match teams up and say, okay, this team has an easy schedule. I think the Kings were dubbed like the 11th easiest schedule remaining in the league, and it's like okay, that's fine. Like, how much does that really factor in this late in the season? Like, they're going to have games against the Golden State Warriors late. They're going to have games when wins and losses probably don't matter too much against the Los Angeles Lakers and against the Houston Rockets as well very late in the season. The Memphis Grizzlies have a very difficult March. They have a very difficult remaining part of the month. They got the Toronto Raptors twice. They got the New Orleans Pelicans twice. And the fact is, what this really boils down to when you talk about the Pelicans and the Trail Blazers and the San Antonio Spurs who lost in Cleveland last night, if you want to throw in the Phoenix Suns there just for fun, and of course the Sacramento Kings, what it really boils down to is, will the Memphis Grizzlies lose the position or not? Will the Memphis Grizzlies lose enough? Because again, we're talking about, you know, roughly 17, 18 games left in the season. Are the Grizzlies going to lose enough games? I mean, 4 games is a lot of games to make up in that short period of time. Are the Grizzlies going to lose enough to where, you know, the Kings, I think I had the stat last night on the Hot Mic app. I think they're 14-6? No, they're 13-7 now in their last 20 games. So 13-7. Let's just say they go 12-6 the remainder of the way. Is that even enough? Remember, they have to make up games. Like, they don't play the Memphis Grizzlies 4 more times. They don't play the Memphis Grizzlies 5 more times. I don't think they play the Memphis Grizzlies again. There's not much the Kings can do to win their way in. They can just keep playing consistently. They're going to need the Memphis Grizzlies to lose their way out. And then once the Grizzlies have, you know, shown, and we've seen in recent weeks that the Grizzlies can fall back a little bit. We've seen the Grizzlies lose a bunch of games in a row, but we've also seen them beat the Los Angeles Lakers, and they had a hell of a weekend. They clinched the playoff spot. We'll talk about them here in just a minute, but there was a lot coming out of last night's game, really a lot focused on, you know, when you look at the schedule and you kind of, okay, man, this game against Portland is really important. This game against New Orleans is really important. Oh, there's this game with Toronto in the middle. The defending champs, even though Kawhi's not there, Danny Green's not there, they're still really good. They're still competing for the number 2 spot. And then it's, okay, all right. If they can get 2 of those 3 games, like if they're able to beat Portland and knock Portland down a notch, which they did, if they're able to beat New Orleans and knock New Orleans down just a little bit, New Orleans, by the way, won last night, then losing that game in the middle to Toronto isn't that big of a deal. The unfortunate part is when you're watching the game, you stop thinking like that because you realize, okay, the Kings are playing well enough to win this game. Then you get into the fourth quarter and you realize, oh, the Kings are actually, they're not only playing well enough to win this game, they're very much in a position to win this game. And then suddenly, like, it falls apart. In the last couple of possessions there for the Sacramento Kings, I really disliked. There's a lot that I disliked about the final minute. Luke Walton spent some time at the press conference talking about both of these issues. We'll get to Buddy Hield in just a minute because that was the topic on social media last night. It was the topic when I joined Sarah Hodges on CBS Sports Sunday. But I didn't love De'Aaron's quick 3. I love the idea of a quick basket because you want to try to extend the game a little bit. And as we were talking on the Hot Mic app last night, I thought for sure that the plan was give the ball to De'Aaron Fox, get a basket as quick as you can. But I thought for sure he was going to go to the basket, which he had been doing incredibly effectively the entire game. De'Aaron, who was shooting like 60% from the foul line, is shooting 90% in the month of March, 90+% in the month of March. And he didn't miss a single free throw over the weekend. He was 18 of 18 in the Kings back-to-back with the Trailblazers and the Toronto Raptors. And he had gotten to the foul line on numerous occasions here in that game in meaningful moments when the Kings desperately needed a basket. De'Aaron would stick his head down. He would head to the basket. He would either get a points in the paint or he'd get a foul call. So as that play was coming out of the timeout, I thought, okay, my guess is ball goes to De'Aaron. No one else touches it. He puts his head down. He tries to get to the basket to get a quick 2 and potentially get fouled in the process and get an and one, and you wind up tying the game at the line. Instead, they go for the quick 2. It falls short, they go for the quick 3. It falls short. The Raptors miss a free throw on the other end. So now you've got a situation where, okay, the Kings are down 3 with probably 1 possession left. And what seemed to rub Kings fans the wrong way was Buddy Hield wasn't out on the floor. Now, let's hear first from Luke Walton. Here's what Luke had to say about why Buddy Hield wasn't on the floor there in those final minutes.
Well, we were scoring. I mean, we were scoring on every play. We scored 39 points in the fourth quarter. So offensively, we scored 39 in a close game. You're doing enough to win offensively. Buddy, I thought was playing a good game, and we were going to get him back in there. But we started really turning it on, and that was out there was really in a good rhythm. So we stuck with it. We had confidence. Multiple guys played. Fox stepped up, hit threes. Bogey hit some. Bellies hit game winners before us. We have faith in all our guys. And I've said before, when a group is rolling, we're gonna stay with them. And you scored 39 points in a quarter, then we're gonna most likely stay with that group.
He's been consistent in that message. He's been consistent in the message that if a group is playing well, he's going to keep them out there on the floor. And this seems to always pertain to Buddy Hield. It's fascinating. It seems to pertain to Buddy Hield and virtually no one else. Like, I can't remember a situation where De'Aaron Fox wasn't in and he was completely healthy in the final minutes of a game. Now, I can remember moments where maybe Bogdanovich wasn't in the game. But when you look at the final possession and you realize what the Kings wound up settling for, and he brought up Nemanja Bjelica there, was a long belly 3. I thought the Kings' offense was really stagnant in the fourth quarter, and that's probably more to the credit of the Toronto Raptors rather than to the discredit of the Sacramento Kings. But that's up to Luke Walton to figure out a way to get his players moving. You go back and you watch, Luke Walton used the line last night. I got to go back and watch the tape. James Ham, I thought, asked him a fantastic question. The Kings came out virtually dead in the first quarter and virtually dead in the third quarter, and there was really no life to them until some of the bench players were put in. There was really no life to them until the second unit came in. The second unit scored 50-some-odd points last night. I think it was 51. Well, if you do the math, that only leaves 62 for the starters, which is a gross difference than what the Toronto Raptors did. Their starters had 111 of their 118 points last night. So the bench really kind of, Alex Len, again, was fantastic last night. Buddy was okay. And so this is kind of where I'm at with Buddy Hield last night. I understand what Luke Walton is saying right there. And the fact is, Buddy hit 3 3-pointers in a really, really short period of time early in the game. And then he just kind of went cold. Like, I don't think he had another meaningful shot. I don't think he really did anything of meaning following that. And I understand what Luke Walton was saying there at the press conference. At the same time, one possession. Run a decent play instead of getting the ball, because what so often happens in the NBA, what so often happens with the Kings, is the guy who catches the inbound balls, the guy who catches the inbound pass is the guy who shoots. Like, it's a one-touch possession. And there was plenty of time for the Sacramento Kings to get a decent look off there. There was plenty of time for the Kings to run an actual play, and I don't feel like they run enough plays for Buddy Hield. I was screaming the entire game, allow him to catch and shoot, allow him to catch and shoot. Now, he missed plenty of, not plenty, he missed like 2 or 3 catch and shoot threes. The other threes that he missed, he was trying to create his own shot. In fact, most of the other shots that he missed, he was trying to create on his own rather than the Kings running plays for him and him being in a catch and shoot situation. So I understand Luke's point's valid. Again, it's valid only because he has kept that stance through the entire season. He has not deviated from it. I just don't. When your last shot winds up being a long 3 from the Miami Bay Elites, I don't feel like that's the ideal way to go. I feel like there's probably something you could have done better in that situation. And then, of course, it's going to lead to you being questioned. When you got the guy who won the 3-point contest on your bench and not getting any run, yeah, fans are going to scream at you. And it's going to be picked up by various sports media podcasts, digital podcast platforms, or digital news alert platforms. It's going to be picked up all over the place. When you've got a fan audibly yelling, Luke, you're an idiot. Like, the 3-point champion is on the bench right now. Put him in the game. And it's hard to argue that line of thinking. Yes, Belly has hit game-winning 3-pointers before. Okay. I'd still rather have Buddy at least out there. Like, you didn't even make it look like. If you didn't want Buddy to shoot, just, hey, Buddy's a decoy here. They're going to guard him. The Toronto Raptors are going to guard him. They're not going to just go, oh, well, Buddy Hield, he's had an off shooting night. Go ahead and leave him open. Like, that's not going to happen. And then the Kings, get a bad shot there, a bad possession in a quarter. And I know Luke was talking about, well, we scored enough. We were doing enough offensively to win the game. We needed to do more defensively. And he's right. The Kings needed to do more defensively. But the fact is, you weren't doing enough to win offensively. Because you didn't. That's kind of easy. And you go back and De'Aaron did enough offensively. Bogdanovich got hot in the fourth quarter. But you needed more as a collective unit. You needed more from your offense. You needed your offense to actually run. When you go back and you look at those threes from De'Aaron and you look at those threes from Bogey, you kind of look at them and go, okay, good. Not ideal, not an ideal possession right there, but you take it. And you walk away with it and you're happy with it because it went in. But none of those threes, particularly there in the fourth quarter, were ideal possessions for the Kings. And now they're left with another one of those kind of what if situations. They're left with another one of those. We had this one. We're gonna look back at this one. We were in a position to win this one, and the Kings let it slip away. 118-113. Kings now 28-36. Of course, they're going to have a number of these the remainder of the year. But the biggest game of the season is coming up on Wednesday. And again, that is something that the Kings are going to have a lot of. There's going to be about 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 of those throughout the rest of the year. They're going to have a number of biggest games of the season. And the next one is coming up when the Sacramento Kings take on the New Orleans Pelicans on Wednesday at the Golden One Center. Maybe the story in the NBA this weekend was not Kenny Atkinson being fired. We'll touch on that in just a minute. And as suspected, all sorts of rumors are coming out surrounding that firing. But I think it was the Los Angeles Lakers And it's what they were able to do not only against the Milwaukee Bucks on Friday, but what they were
two
able to do
MVP candidates
against the
guarding
Los
each
Angeles
other
Clippers yesterday. The Lakers clinched their first playoff berth.
James inside, banks that one
They
in.
beat the Milwaukee Bucks, who suddenly no longer look like a team that's going to compete for 70 wins. Like they followed up their loss to the Los Angeles Lakers with a loss last night to the Phoenix Suns. But the Lakers, and we'll talk more about the Bucks here in just a minute. But the Lakers, they got the job done. Two really, really big, I don't know if you want to use statement wins for the Los Angeles Lakers. Maybe they were. You come out and you beat two teams that are very much potentially, standing in their path of winning an NBA championship. You beat the Bucks. You beat the Clippers. For my money, those are you throw in the Boston Celtics. Those are the four teams I think we're talking about for the NBA Finals right there. I think we're talking about the Bucks, the Celtics, the Clippers, and the Lakers. And the Lakers were able to beat two of those teams. LeBron continues to be fantastic. Anthony Davis continues to be fantastic. He had 30 points and 8 rebounds yesterday. That's his third straight 30-point game. LeBron James had 28, 7, and 9. He scored or assisted on 19 of the Lakers' fourth quarter points. The Lakers improved to 42-0 with a lead through 3 quarters. And, Paul George was fantastic yesterday. Kawhi Leonard was good. Kawhi Leonard had a weird stat line yesterday. He had 27 points and no assist. That's his first time with no assists in like a year and a half. Paul George had 31. It's his 8th game this season with 30-plus points. The Clippers are actually 5-3 in those 8 games. But a statement weekend for the Los Angeles Lakers. The Bucks, on the other hand, the Bucks are going to be moving forward. They played last night's game in Phoenix without Giannis Antetokounmpo, who has a minor joint capsule sprain in his left knee, and he went. He's back in Milwaukee. He got the MRI. He's not going to play in the final game of the Bucks road trip, where the Bucks may very well find themselves at 12 losses, a place that I wasn't sure that they were going to get to. Or it's a place that I thought maybe they would wind up ending the season at. So barring a massive win streak over this final stretch of games here, it doesn't look like 70 wins is in the future for the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, question. We know how reactionary we all are. And I'm not isolating anybody. Like, I'm the same way. So I'll throw this question out to you. With the weekend that the Los Angeles Lakers had, with the season that LeBron James has had, if the Milwaukee Bucks don't win 70 games this year, does that open the door for LeBron to win the MVP? And what's a better story? LeBron winning the MVP in his, 16, 17 season, whatever it is, he's going to lead the league in assists this year, or Giannis Antetokounmpo winning his second straight MVP. Now, second straight, 2 straight MVPs, it felt like rarefied air, and it still is, but we did just see it with Steph Curry, right? And it doesn't diminish the accomplishment. It just recency, the recency factor kind of changes the way that we look at it. But I wonder, again, with the season that LeBron has had, with the weekend that the Lakers have just had, and with the weekend that the Bucks have just had, knowing that Giannis Antetokounmpo isn't going to play in the next game, does this open the door up a little bit for LeBron James to win the MVP? And maybe a better question would be, was the door even closed for LeBron James to win the MVP? It felt like Giannis was sprinting towards his second straight Most Valuable Player of the Year award. Partly because of his team success, partly because of the potential of 70 wins. But the fact is, offensively, he's been incredible. Defensively, he's been incredible. You know who else has been really good defensively is Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis has been really good defensively, and I think that has been lost in how great LeBron James has been. But Anthony Davis has had himself a really, really good season. And I haven't talked about Frank Vogel being a potential coach of the year. I've talked about Billy Donovan, talked about Nick Nurse. Obviously, Coach Bud is in the conversation again. I think there's a number of teams. I haven't really mentioned Frank Vogel too much. And part of that is the LeBron factor. You coach LeBron James, and you're kind of expected to win games. What Frank Vogel doing? Not really a big deal. We expect it out of him because we expect LeBron James teams to win. We expect LeBron James and Anthony Davis teams to win. Forgetting that often there's a point in the season, usually around February, where there are reports that LeBron is starting to turn on the front office or LeBron is starting to turn on the coaching staff. And I think with Jason Kidd just kind of hanging out, lurking in the bushes here, it feels like we were just waiting for the moment. I call it LeBron James-induced panic. It happens every year. It hasn't happened this year. Not only has it not happened this year, it's clearly not going to because we've passed that point in the season. LeBron James-induced panic happens yearly in February. And we are well into March right now, and the Lakers are rolling. And no team in basketball had a better weekend than the Los Angeles Lakers did. I think there was one misstep, and it's difficult to call it a misstep, but I do want to play for you LeBron James' remarks on the coronavirus. If you recall, the NBA sent out a memo that was telling players how to take precautionary measures. If you're going to sign autographs, bring your own pen. Have the person you're signing the autograph for. If you're autographing a ball, make sure that they're holding the ball. If you're autographing a jersey, make sure that whatever you're autographing, the person that you're autographing it for is holding it, and all you're doing is holding your pen. No handshakes, just do fist bumps moving forward. Make sure you wash your hands and do all of that stuff that we're reading about here on a daily basis. But part of that memo was the potential for an NBA game to be played in an empty arena. And LeBron James was asked about that on Friday night.
We play games without the fans. I ain't playing. That's what I play for. That's what I play for. My teammates play for. I play for the fans. That's what it's all about. So if I show up to a arena, ain't no fans. I ain't playing. So do what they want to do.
So I understand what LeBron James is doing right there. I get it, and commend him for it. He plays for the fans. You want to applaud things like that. Like, that's fine. I think it's maybe a little bit short-sighted on his part, because while I understand what LeBron James is saying right there, I understand what LeBron James is doing. At the same time, Adam Silver has got to figure out how to navigate this, what has now turned into a full-on crisis. Like, we're in straight up panic mode as it pertains to this coronavirus. And Adam Silver has to figure out a way to serve a number of masters, right? He's got to serve the fans. He's got to serve sponsors. And most importantly, Adam Silver's got to figure out a way to serve his television partners. And if that means they've got to play a game in an arena with no fans, that's something Adam Silver had to put out there. I'm guessing, don't know this for sure, but I have to imagine someone in the league office called LeBron and said, hey, bro, this is kind of what we're looking at. This is what we may have to do, and here's why. We've got to get through the last 17, 18 games of this regular season. We've got to navigate this crisis that's causing, and it's a huge factor. If there's an arena that's going to close because of this virus, I get the feeling it's going to be the Golden One Center, given what we've seen in Sacramento in this Sacramento area over recent days. We've seen the Elk Grove School District shut down. I think there have been at least rumblings of something similar happening in the Rockland area. I know people have been sent home from their jobs. All sorts of different things have been going on, and the proximity to the Bay Area. I kind of felt like when that memo was issued, I felt like they were talking to two teams. I thought they were talking to the Golden One Center, and I thought they were talking to the Chase Center. They were talking to the fans in Sacramento, and they were talking to the fans in the Bay Area. Like, hey, there's a probability that this could happen. Of course, they're talking to teams across the league. Like, it's not isolated to here in California. It feels like it's isolated in California. One, because we live here, because of the cruise ship, because of the planes that have flown in and all of those different things. But the fact is, it's not. Like, there are cases in Massachusetts. There are cases in New York. There's cases, I think, in 30 states now. And Adam Silver has to figure out a way to navigate this while getting through his regular season and, doing his duty for his television partners. It's a slippery road to navigate right now. And it's one that it's going to be one of Adam Silver's most difficult things that he has to deal with moving forward, because I actually thought this thing would kind of die down by now. I thought the panic over the coronavirus would kind of die down, and I'm not trying to make light of it. It's obviously it's very serious, it's very important, but it's not new. Like we went through this with the, what was it called, the H1N1 a couple of years ago. I feel like every once in a while we experience, like we find out about a virus that is going to end the world, and this one is spreading, and you try to. You try to look at the cases in its totality and realize what you're seeing. And then, of course, you have the weird situations where public health officials are like, okay, here's what we want you to do. Here's how you can prevent contacting this virus, and here's how you can protect the people around you. If you have a weak immune system, stay home, talk to your employer. If there's anyone at your office that's sick, maybe you stay away from there. Maybe the person who is actually sick doesn't come to work. Obviously, sick leave factors in, and I understand all of that. We want you to wash your hands. Wash your hands for 20 seconds. Use very hot water. Use soap and water. If you have hand sanitizer, great. Use that stuff. Nothing wrong with doubling up. And then people go buy water and toilet paper, like they're stocking up their bunkers. So it creates this like apocalyptic thing where suddenly you go to Target and the aisles are stripped thin, like there's no water, like the canned foods are gone, and people are hunkering down in their bunker like we're about to witness something out of a strange sci-fi movie. When the people associated with trying to minimize the impact of this disease are saying, wash your hands, folks are out there buying toilet paper and water. They're hunkering down for a really long time. All right, do your thing. I diverted there a little bit from what I think Adam Silver is dealing with, but I think Adam Silver is of the mindset, we have got to get through the next 4 weeks. We've got to get through these next 18 games. We've got to get to the playoffs. And if we have to navigate the remainder of the regular season by having these teams, because we can't postpone the games anymore. Like they postponed one game because of an extraordinary circumstance directly tied to the NBA. He can't postpone, 30 more games or 15 more games because of a national health crisis. If the answer is to play in an empty arena with only essential team personnel present, then that's ultimately what they have to do. As the video stream has me trying to navigate these stupid headphones I'm wearing, which makes no sense to anybody listening to the podcast, but for those who are watching, have seen me fiddle with these stupid headphones I'm wearing all morning long. But I thought LeBron's remarks, while in the right place, I thought they were a bit short-sighted. Given what Adam Silver is having to navigate and having to deal with right now. As we roll along here, as always, even on the video stream, Sky Natural is a major sponsor here of the program. We appreciate everything that Sky Natural CBD does for us, and you will appreciate what Sky Naturals does for you. Head over to skynaturalcbd.com. Use the promo code in the game. That will get you 15% off your order. It's not 15% off your first order. It's 15% off of every order. All you have to do is enter the promo code in the game, whether you're looking for the topical balm that we talk about so frequently here on this program, whether you want the hemp oil extract, which is absolutely fantastic. If you want that beautiful combination of CBD and melatonin, you could check that out. If you've got dogs, maybe older labs, have some hip issues, maybe they don't move around as quickly as they used to, their CBD dog treats could absolutely help you out. Maybe if you got dogs with a little bit of anxiety when you go to work, or you got dogs who have anxiety when you get in the car, these Sky Natural CBD treats will absolutely help them out. So they've got treats for you. They've got treats for your four-legged friends. Check them out, skynaturalscbd.com, and use the promo code in the game to get 15% off of your order. I had mentioned this just a moment ago. Kenny Atkinson is out as the Brooklyn Nets head coach. General manager Sean Marks said the decision to part ways with Kenny Atkinson it had been in the making for a while. The two were going in different directions. And Sean Marks said, I would have loved Kenny to be here long term. I think we all have ideas that this is going to last forever, and we'll keep building this together. We had a great run for 4 years. The fact is, no, they didn't. They very much did not have a great run. As a matter of fact, Kenny Atkinson's win percentage was .383 during his time as the Brooklyn Nets head coach. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way towards Kenny Atkinson. I mean that in a disparaging way to the Brooklyn Nets. I think Kenny Atkinson is very much going to be a sought-after coach here, potentially before the end of this regular season. I think Kenny Atkinson may be so sought out as a head coach, we might see a team who knows they're going to part ways with their current head coach and go ahead and make the move to get him before the season ends. Now, they'll have, an interim to finish out the remaining 2, 3, 4 games of the season or whatever. But I think Kenny Atkinson might have an opportunity to kind of pick his destination. And, of course, this morning, you knew this was going to happen. It started right away. How does KD factor into this? How does Kyrie Irving factor into this? And The Athletic reported this morning that there was there were rumblings that maybe KD and Kyrie, maybe they weren't big on Kenny Atkinson. DeAndre Jordan was moved to the bench. He's part of that core group there. He's part of those, he's well liked by very influential people in the Brooklyn Nets locker room. And you moved him to the bench. I'm sure he wasn't feeling particularly great about that. And this kind of plays a factor. And this is what happens when you have superstar players. I'm not blaming this on the Brooklyn Nets. There are rumors that maybe Ty Lue is in position to take over as head coach. Kyrie's guy, allegedly, which I had no idea. I had no idea Ty Lue was Kyrie's guy. Obviously, I knew that Ty Lue coached Kyrie Irving before, but I didn't know really what their relationship was. There's rumors about Mark Jackson. Of course, any coach that's out of a job right now, or particularly any high-profile coach, because you got to believe this is a very high-profile job. You're going to be coaching Kyrie Irving. You're going to be coaching Kevin Durant. There are people who are going to think the Brooklyn Nets, you've already got Karis LeVert on your roster. There are people who think the Brooklyn Nets are going to be absolutely unstoppable next year. And rightfully so. Like, I completely understand that line of thinking. But, it's walking into those situations where you've got a couple of ready-made superstars and a potentially ready-made team. We know that those aren't always the easiest things to do. Another big story that broke that I don't feel like is getting a ton of attention. Calvin Watkins of the Dallas Morning News reported this over the weekend. And again, hasn't been picked up in the way that I thought it would be. But the Dallas Cowboys, allegedly, according to Calvin Watkins, the Dallas Morning News, have offered Dak Prescott a contract with an average value of $33 million per year. Now, for context purposes, I know, they want $40 million a year. They want as close to $40 million a year as they can get, and they want to, they want to trump the, all of this Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers and all of that stuff. When you look at the fact that Dak Prescott isn't under contract, so the $33 million is all brand new money. It actually does make him the highest paid player in the NFL. It gives him, I take that back, it gives him the richest contract in the NFL because remember, Russell Wilson, his new money was $35 million per year, but because he already had money on the books, it kind of averaged out to $31.4 million. Again, we're arguing $31.4 million versus $35 million. We're arguing about being the richest versus the second richest deal ever signed. I don't really know what Dak Prescott's agent. I really don't know what they were looking for here in this situation. But the fact is, they're making out pretty well here. You know what I mean? Like Dak Prescott, highest paid quarterback in the NFL. I don't feel like those two things go hand in hand. Could be wrong. Don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I love Dak Prescott. I'm just not 100% confident that Dak Prescott should be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And again, it's all relative, right? He's only going to be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL until Patrick Mahomes signs his contract. And we're used to next contract up becomes highest contract ever. I think once Patrick Mahomes signs, that trend's going to end for a while. Because who's going to make more money than Patrick Mahomes? I mean, here's Russell Wilson's deal right now. $107 million guaranteed. $70 million was guaranteed at signing. So when NFL contracts are signed, there's guaranteed money, which is what we all pay attention to. And then there's right now guaranteed money. That's the money that comes with signing bonuses. That's whether the first year you get all of that up front. Like a lot of times players will get like a $30 million signing bonus, and then they'll get the first $30 million of their contract. They'll get it right up front. And then they'll wind up making like, $500,000 during the actual, game played portion of the season. Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers, his general guarantee was lower. It was 98.7, but the full guarantee at signing was 79.2 million. So the full details of what Dak Prescott was offered haven't been revealed yet. I have to imagine, again, as so often is when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys, this was leaked by the Dallas Cowboys ownership group. This was leaked to put out there, hey, look at what we're offering Dak Prescott. Like, look at what we're willing to do for him. If Dak Prescott doesn't sign now, what more could we possibly do for him? Now, remember, there's a lot that we don't know. We don't know the signing bonus. We don't know the fully guaranteed salaries. We don't know the fully guaranteed roster bonuses. We don't know the fully guaranteed payments. We know the $33 million. That's a really, really good-looking number for Steven and Jerry to float out there to their beat writers at the Dallas Morning News and, again, say, hey, look at what we're trying to do for Dak Prescott here. He still won't sign this deal. Look, we're trying to make him the richest quarterback in NFL history. We're trying to do so much for him, and he's just not cooperating. It's similar. This story is very, very similar to the one that came out, midway through last year, at the beginning of last year, when there was a report that Dak Prescott allegedly wants $40 million a year. And we talked about the absurdity of that. Even as an NFL agent, we talked about the absurdity of that. When you look at how contracts for quarterbacks have gone up through the years, it's usually in increments like, Aaron Rodgers to Ben Roethlisberger, back to Aaron Rodgers to Russell Wilson to Kirk Cousins or whoever. When you go through these contracts, you realize, okay, they go up like $1 million, $1.5 million. Okay, this one went up $2.5 million. Okay, this one went up $1 million. This one went up $2 million. They go up in very small increments. I refuse to believe that Dak Prescott's agent went to the negotiating table and said, we want $5 million more than Russell Wilson gets per year. We want $5 million more than a quarterback who is constantly in the MVP conversation, and a quarterback who has been to 2 Super Bowls, a quarterback who has won the Super Bowl, a quarterback who single-handedly carries his offense. We want $5 million more than him. I argued last year that Ezekiel Elliott was more important to the Dallas Cowboys than Dak Prescott is. After last season, I don't necessarily feel that way. I feel like the two are kind of in a position now where they need to go hand in hand here. And you've already stepped out there and you've paid your running back, the richest running back deal in NFL history. I don't think they have to make Dak Prescott the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. If you do, it's fine. It's only going to be temporary. There are people saying that Dak Prescott needs to take a team-friendly deal. No NFL player, and really, for my money, no athlete, period, ever needs to take a team-friendly deal. It's not up to Dak Prescott to navigate the salary cap. It's up to Steven and Jerry Jones to navigate the salary cap. The responsibility for how to fit, tight end number 1 and all-pro linebacker number 2 and a Pro Bowl offensive line under contract under the salary cap, that's not Dak Prescott's responsibility. Dak Prescott's responsibility is to play quarterback. It's not Ezekiel Elliott's responsibility. It's not any NFL player's responsibility. It is up to the general manager and their front office to navigate the coaching, to navigate the salary cap. And if you decide, well, we're not going to be able to pay Dak Prescott this money, or we're not going to be able to pay quarterback A or quarterback B or player A or player B this amount of money and still get this player who we really want to keep and this player we really want to keep, Well, then you've got to figure it out. You've got to decide, well, we're going to let this player go, or we're going to trade him, or we're going to throw the franchise tag on him. We're going to do something. Like, you've got to figure that out. The front office has to figure that out. It's not on Dak Prescott, and it's not on any player in the NFL. It's not on any player in any sport to figure out how to navigate a salary cap, particularly a hard cap like the NFL has. And there's going to be a lot of talk about hard caps and 17 games and salary bonuses and extended contracts and all of that stuff, as sometime this week, the collective bargaining agreement is going to be voted on. As we noted at the end of last week, the CBA has been sent to the players to be voted on. I do want to note right now, as the podcast rolls along, appreciate everybody watching on YouTube. I feel like this is a rocky first video stream. I'm having trouble with my headphones. Like, we had some audio playing in the background there. There's still a lot that I'm trying to figure out with this new software I'm using. So for those who are watching on YouTube, appreciate it. I promise, be patient with me, man. I'll get this thing figured out here at some point. I'm a little bit more technology savvy than it's coming across here in the first YouTube version of the podcast that we're doing. But I do want to note, Amy Trask is set to join me here tomorrow on the podcast. Obviously, Amy Trask, a great friend of the Lowdown. Amy Trask, a great friend of mine. And she wrote recently about the collective bargaining agreement, about how the players should approach it, about red flags that should go up. So we'll talk to her about that. And the Big Three is going to be in Sacramento at the Golden One Center in August. So if time permits, we'll spend a little time talking Big Three and her trip to Sacramento coming up this summer. So Amy Trask set to join us here on the podcast tomorrow. But we've gotten to the point now with this collective bargaining agreement out there. We've gotten to the point where now we're getting, further reports here that, okay, so the players are saying, a lot of star players are saying, and they're adamant, vote no on this. Like, don't let this pass. Don't let this pass. And we've covered in great detail, the haves and have-nots. We've covered in great deal the pros and the cons and all of that stuff over the course of the last few weeks. Well, now there's a report. And again, just like the Dak Prescott story, this reeks as something that came from the NFL owners in an attempt to pressure the players union to pass this. Why? What's the hang up right now? To the best that we've been able to follow, what's the hang up with the players? It's that 17th game. They don't want that 17th game to be a part of this, because now we're talking about, teams that make the playoffs. You could have a couple of teams now playing 2 extra games per season. Well, it was put out there that, there are a lot of owners who they don't want this collective bargaining agreement to pass. They don't want this to be ratified. They actually want the players to vote no, because what those owners want to do is, if the players vote no, they want to go back to the negotiating table with not a 17-game schedule and a new playoff format. They want an 18-game schedule and a new playoff format. Source said, according to ESPN, they think they can get a better deal. They feel they gave up too much on the economics. Imagine that. Imagine being an NFL owner where you only have to split proceeds up to 48.5%. You only have to split revenue up to 48.5%. Remember, you're an owner. Like, you've established yourself as a billionaire, except for Mark Davis. And then you have the team-owned team in Green Bay. But other than that, you've got 30 other owners who've established themselves in some walk of life. They've made their money. Perhaps they've just inherited their money. Whatever it is. And all you have to do is pay people, because that's essentially what owners do, right? They pay. You try to pay the best people. You try to pay the best general manager to run your football team. The best general manager hires the best coach, and you kind of just sit back. And you're certainly not one of the 22, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys. You're not one of the 30 guys who week after week goes out there and runs 50 miles an hour at a 275-pound brick wall. You don't do any of that. You don't do any of that stuff. But you don't even have to split your profits evenly, and you feel like you're giving up too much. You're an NFL owner going against the weakest players union in all of sports, in all of professional sports. and you feel like you gave up too much. A handful of owners, according to ESPN, they want an 18-game schedule eventually, and that could come up in future negotiations if the players vote no on this current version of the CBA. We'll see how this plays out. I'm really anxious to talk to Amy Trask because, again, this feels like, even though the negotiating is allegedly done, this feels like a negotiation tactic from the owners. Float a story out there that says, you think a 17-game schedule is hard? Wait till we throw this 18-game schedule at you. Oh, wait till you. What's the movie? Was it? I don't remember what. Wait till they get a load of me. What was that? Was that the original Batman with Jack Nicholson? Is that what that was? That's what I feel like the owners do. Oh, wait till they get a load of this one. Go ahead, vote no. Watch what happens. And I'm guessing. I think Thursday is the date that the vote is due by, because once the CBA goes out, the Players Association has 7 days to vote. Not the Players Association, sorry. The Players Union has 7 days to vote. And I believe that now is Thursday. So imagine the story that's going to come out tomorrow. We want a 20-game schedule. Imagine the story that's going to come out the day before. Or we want to reduce benefits, or we want to reduce all sorts of nonsense is going to come out. And this is how owners in the NFL approach stuff. Because just like the Dak Prescott story, just like the story that Dak Prescott he's got offered the highest paid contract in the NFL. This is done to minimize damage. This is done to make ownership's hands look clean if Dak Prescott winds up walking away from this. This story here is done to add pressure on the Players Union to vote yes on this deal and pass it. And there's a reason, I said DeMaurice Smith said last week, well, why don't you have an opt-out clause? And DeMaurice Smith responded, owners don't have one either. Okay. Doesn't that concern you just a little bit that the owners don't have an opt-out clause? Like, doesn't it concern you that the owners are comfortable enough with this collective bargaining agreement to sign it for 10 years? Doesn't make you the slightest bit uncomfortable? Okay. Amy Trask set to join us here on the podcast tomorrow. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Appreciate you for downloading, streaming. If you're listening through the conventional forms on the podcast, I promise absolutely nothing is going to change. We continue to be available on radio.com, Apple Podcast, iTunes, Spotify. We ask you, if you haven't subscribed to this show yet, please become a subscriber. If you haven't rated and reviewed the show yet, please do that as well. Share it with all your friends. Tell your friends what we're doing. There is local sports talk here in Sacramento. It's just on a digital platform. We're here on YouTube for the first time. If you took the opportunity to watch us, I'm going to clean. There's still a lot I'm trying to figure out with the software that I'm using. There's still a lot I'm trying to figure out as it comes to streaming and making sure that you get the best video quality, making sure that you can get some highlights. I know I got to be careful when I show highlights. I got to be careful. I even got to be careful when I play music. Got to be careful of all sorts of things when you head to YouTube. So I'll be aware of that. But thank you so much for tuning in. If you're on YouTube, go check us out. If you're just listening through the conventional podcast platform, go see what we did on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button there. Hit the notification button there so you get alerted when we go live. And we will be back here tomorrow on the podcast with Damien Barling.